Johannes, we have met and seen each other over various events. Great to have you on the Joy of Padel. In a few words, who is Johannes?
Well, I'm a Swedish citizen, so I'm based in Sweden, and I'm heading up Padel TV, which I think the company is more interesting than me in a paddle
Oh, we're going to
narrative.
get back to that.
But yeah, I'm 50 years of age this year, and I have 3 kids, live in Stockholm, and I'm the CEO of Padel TV, and of course a paddle aficionado. So I do love the game, and that's what brings me to paddle. And but I've been well, I don't like the word entrepreneur, but I think that for a lack of a better one, that's what I've been doing the last years. So I've headed up a few companies, started a few, and still own a couple of companies in Sweden and other countries as well. But now I'm 100% focused on paddle.
Right. So obviously Sweden and the paddle is a thing. It's a story. We've already had Kelly Akerson and Danny Windahl, amongst others, and Seb Gordon, of course. So we got lots of Swedish folks in, and paddle is a booming big business in Sweden. But let's start. How did you get into it? What made you say, "Oh, this is a fun business or a fun sport to play"?
Well, as most people, I started as a player, so I played a lot. I've played a lot of paddle, and I'm actually better than I look. I usually say, but so I played a fairly high level, but not the elite anymore. So I started playing a lot when the sport was very new in Sweden, and of course, you know, as many people, when you go to Spain for a holiday, you see these courts and you wonder, well, what are those? But now I know what they are, and yeah, I was pretty early. I built my own courts. I have a horse farm in the Swedish archipelago, so I built 2 courts there in 2019. So pretty early for being Swedish, and yeah, for being the world as well, probably, if you're not Spanish and Argentinian. But yeah, so of course, naturally, I've played a lot of paddle at home and in venues as well, of course.
Well, I can't imagine how timely that must have been to have your 2 paddle courts in your backyard through COVID. Of course, one of the things I do
Yeah.
like to hat tip to is how the Swedes dealt with COVID in such a much more mature way, in my opinion, compared to most of the rest of the world, which went running scared. But it must have been good to have 2 paddle courts in the next. I mean, I don't know anybody who has 2 paddle courts in their home.
Yeah, well, what we do have in when you live in the archipelago, which is very much the countryside in Sweden, even though it's you know, very popular in the summer, it's a space, so it's pretty big. We have horses as well, but I leave that to my wife and daughters to take care of, and I stay on the paddle courts, I think. So yeah, I could have built more, but 2 courts is it's very good for organizing events and club championships, and you know, even if I'm playing, there's always another court. So if people want to come, it's always fun to be 8 people instead of 4 and mix around. So, but it's very interesting. You should mention the COVID, because yes, it was definitely easier to deal with. I have a guest house where a few paddle players have stayed during the years, and during COVID, as you know, everything was closed in Spain, of course, and in most of the world. So I had Mike Yanguas living in my guest house at one time. Of course, Cayetano Rocafort, who's been living in Sweden many years and was the Swedish #1. He lived there more than half a year. Jose Sanchez David, who is a good friend, and yeah, other players as well. I've had Paquito and LeBron coming to visit, but not that many times because of their schedule, but yeah, they do enjoy to play on my courts, and I of course enjoy to play with them. And during the pandemic, they were so amazed to be going around venues and seeing, like, this is amazing to watch. What, you're playing paddle? Everything is closed in Spain, they were saying, you know. So yeah, it was. I think it was a good approach, but it was quite strange in Sweden that all the gyms, everything was closed, but you were allowed to play paddle. So of course, two things happened. All paddle players got COVID first in Sweden, because we pass around that ball, and the authorities didn't think that that would be a transmitter, but it sure was. Yeah, and then everyone was pretty safe because of immunity, and so yeah, it was a strange time for everyone, but in Sweden we coped pretty well. And I think what we're seeing right now with Swedish players, especially the men, becoming very, very good on a world stage is due to the phenomenon that was Swedish paddle during the pandemic, and also that we were allowed to play and there was nothing else to play. So now we see Adam Axelsson, Willy Släryd, Douglas Rutgersson. These guys are becoming among the top 100 in the world, and still going. So yeah, I think we owe a lot to the Swedish authorities during the pandemic, paddle-wise.
That's a beautiful thing. I forgot to mention, I also had Jonas Björkman on my show as well.
Oh yeah, he's a good friend.
Swedes. He's
He's done a lot for it. He's done a lot for Swedish paddle. I can tell you that, both as the captain of the national team, where he did far more than he's supposed to, and bringing attention to the sport, of course, with his fame in tennis, and now his son Max Björkman is becoming one of the best players in Sweden, and is now on the national team. So naturally, Jonas has stopped that job because it's easier to bring his son in if someone else heads it up. So.
Right, conflict of interest, shall we say?
Yeah.
So I just was thinking, 2 courts. My cousin Fabrice has 2 courts, so I should have corrected that mid thought. His 2 places, 2 courts in Turks, and then my partner in one of my other businesses, which is going to be a paddle startup, is a lady horseman. So
okay.
Many connections, and I like horse people. I think there's a groundedness to people who know horses. All right, so what was it?
I always felt that way. Just as a side mark, when I've hired people in other companies, I've always thought that as a positive. If you worked with horses, you're very independent. You're not afraid to do labor. So I've always thought that as a plus when I do hiring interviews. Yeah,
that's a phenomenal anecdote. I typically like it when they've done some psychedelics, but that's another topic.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Did I say that really on air? Listen.
Yeah.
So Padel TV, this idea of broadcasting paddle, how did you come into that idea? I mean, it must have been a very daunting concept. Is it big enough? Was there enough audience? Technically, how do you make it happen? What was it that convinced you to get into this gig?
Well, I do try to. I usually say that I have 3 interests. Those are movies, like film, and wine, and paddle. So I try to work with all 3 because it's my hobbies and interests. So I'm an educated sommelier, so I do a lot of wines and wine trips, and yeah, I obviously drink a lot of wine as well. It's an interest, and I also produce movies, mostly in Sweden, but sometimes abroad as well. And of course, I wanted to find a way to work with paddle, and the natural thing is to head up or start a paddle venue, but that was going very fast in Sweden, too fast as it were, and which would become very obvious as it is now. But so thankfully I never got into that, but I did have some proposals and ideas, but then came the opportunity to become a part owner and head up as a CEO the Padel TV that started in 2021 in Sweden, with the agreement that to be the exclusive partner of the Swedish Padel Federation. With Kalle Åkesson, who you mentioned, he was the sole employee at that time. Now they're 11 or something, I think, but going
at
fast.
The Swedish Federation.
Yeah, at the Swedish Federation. So we had a 3-year agreement with the Swedish Federation, which was the start of our company. And it was actually not me that founded it. It was 2 other guys. One is still part owner, but a small one, and the other one is out. So things have changed, but they approached me, and the one who's still a part owner was the CEO of the biggest newspaper in Sweden, Aftonbladet, when I worked for them. So he knew me and wanted me and introduced me to the team, and so that's how I started with it. I had no, previous knowledge of broadcasting, so that's a skill I have to learn as we go, and I'm still learning. But I do know how to head up a company and marketing and strategies, and we've learned a lot. Our agreements with the federations now that are with the Danish Federation, and of course, since we came to contact with the LTA for the exclusive partnership of streaming all sanctioned tournaments and the British Padel Tour and the upcoming first ever British National Championships. So now our deals with them are looking much better from our part,
Sure.
from our side of the story. In the beginning, everyone in Sweden thought that padel was going, you would have thought that it was going to outgrow football or something in the way that people invested in it, but it turns out it's not outgrowing football anytime soon, at least. But it's becoming one of the biggest sports in the world and in Sweden, and that's good enough, of course. So our idea is to produce padel at the elite level, but in a high quality way. So with multiple cameras, instant replays, commentaries, studio with hosts, and graphics. So as to model it from what you see on football or tennis, and that's what we do, and put that on our own platform, of course. So
I want to get into all that, but I do have one lingering question coming back, which is, you got passion for padel, you have the love of film, get it? I'm just wondering, how do you slip in the oenology and your wine in this? Is it behind the camera? Is it celebrating at the end of the tournament? I'm just wondering where the wine fits in.
Well, of course, the wine doesn't fit in very well on court, of course, but there's a time for everything, and
Yes.
So the wine probably goes with when it's off court.
Johannes, there's something I remember. I mean, I've been playing padel for over 50 years now, and I do recall in the early days, late 70s, and when I was allowed, drinking, whatever it was, gin and tonics, or what do they call, the vino tinto del verano, the typical thing, but playing with it in my hand, because we didn't take it quite as seriously back in those days. All right, so anyway, congratulations for the LTA. They want to get into that in a moment, but talking about filming padel, because most of us who are listening probably are players. We may watch, but I'm interested to hear, what are the trickier elements, the challenges of filming padel? Is it better to have it? Is there lighting the real issue, the glass, and I can imagine reflection? How many cameras do you need to have? How many people do you need to produce the thing, where you have times to obviously focus in on certain people or certain shots? And does that include also the ability to have the third umpire for video replays?
Well, of course, it's an interesting question and one we deal with all the time, but I'm not really sure, just to be humble, that we're filming paddle exactly the way it's supposed to be done in the best way, because it's a very young sport. And now it's sort of become a norm how to do it from what we call the VPT, or from the World Padel Tour angle, where the main camera tries to get the fence, the back fence from the closest wall in an angle, so the fence, the lower part of the fence, aligns with the lower part of the net, and the high part of the fence goes exactly just below the service line on the faraway court. So that's what we call the WPT angle, and it requires like 14 meters back and 7 meters up, something like that. So that's what we're aiming for. But of course, we need a manned close-up camera, and we need a net camera if there's out-of-court play. And preferably we need a beauty shot of the venue. And yeah, well, it's easy enough to see our broadcasts, but and preferably we're doing more courts, like we're doing a FIP Silver now, that's already done when we get out this broadcast, but there we do 4 courts and in different quality and varieties, but always with a scorecard, of course, because paddle is unbearable to watch if you don't have a scorecard. And so that's the baseline, of course, a scorecard and a good main camera. But then you need close-ups, you need slow-mos, you need instant replays, you need someone following the ball in court. And you pose a good question, because it's filming paddle is not about bringing the most expensive equipment or the most experienced photographers even, because we've seen on Premier Padel, we've seen Hexagon, where they do make mistakes, which you and me and others that know paddle can correct them. Like, you know, a good example is when they do a instant replay during a golden point, which makes you miss how the game ends, you know. So and of course they have to understand how to court play and the rules in order to follow it in the best way. So being a young sport, we do try to find different new aspects of the game. I think graphics and statistics is heightening the viewer experience a lot. We do need like unforced errors, winners, smash speed, which everyone is talking, oh, who has the hardest smash on the World Tour? Well, we could actually say that for a fact if we use smash speed like we did in the Hexagon Cup this year.
Right.
And we also had lob height, which is the interesting element. Everyone is always focused in the fast play, but as we who play paddle know, it's the defense who wins the game. And, you know, one miss equals one winner. So it's always the guys who, even on the top level, the guys who miss are the guys that loses. So that's an element I really like with the sport. I hate playing against people who never miss, but I think they are the best paddle players per se, because, you know, tennis is all about the winners, but
right.
But in paddle is a game of not missing, and I like to capture that even in the broadcast as well.
I love that, Johannes. So I like the idea, this notion you're bringing to me around. Really, you need to know the game in order to film, because it is a dynamic sport, and it's not the same. You can't intuitively understand everything. You kind of need to know that you can play out of bounds. What is a good ball, bad ball, and all that. So that's really interesting. And from a technical standpoint, is it using artificial intelligence to understand the lob height? How does that happen? Because typically, I mean, most of the time when we're filming, the lob, I mean, these big ones anyway, pinchado, they'll be way out of the zone typically. So do you actually follow it? How on earth do you measure those?
Yeah, well, when you go into technical details, it's a trajectory. So if you are to measure speed, you need two cameras because you need to have the difference from where the ball is moving. You could actually do spin percentage. Never been done, but I'm exploring that. So you could do, because of course ball spin is a very key element in paddle, which is probably is not in tennis in the same way. So we're looking into doing that, but of course, yeah, you need to follow the ball with the camera. So, but cameras do pick up a lot, and in the case of Hexagon, we used a system, that's very big in the tennis arena as well, but it requires 45 to 50 cameras on one court. So
Wow.
it's pretty big. It's pretty big, and of course very costly. So we don't use that for very small tournaments, but in big tournaments, that's good. And like the upcoming Intercontinental Cup, America versus Europe, which is probably the biggest event we've done so far in. And that's coming back this year. And I'm very pleased that the Hexagon team will be organizing that because they're very professional and doing a very good event. So they've actually teamed up with Premier Padel and FIP for this one. And there, of course, then we will have, the best production we can ever have, and that goes a bit further than Premier Padel and World Padel Tour, but yeah, it does require a lot of cameras to do those to do those statistics. Yes.
And for me, what I'm thinking about is capturing that data, because it's amazing how even outdoor, a lot of people don't do high lobs. I mean, doing high lob after high lob after high lob is a bit boring, but it's amazing. It would be really useful. I'd love to have that information. And the other thing that we should have, though, is where they land, because my typical when I'm coaching, I'll talk about 90% of pros lobs land on or behind the service line, and they have a very high accuracy rate in that space, those 3 meters. And so I wonder if you can't also grab their precision, because that's something you practice. I just was having Ksenia Sharifova on and talking about how getting the lob right is so important, and it's something you practice. Anyway, that if you can grab me something, I'll share that.
That's very
afterwards.
different lobs as well, because you have the fast-paced lob,
sure,
which barely reaches the back glass, and you don't get any bounce afterwards. So, and of course, you need to reach that one. It should just be out of reach. So you try to reach it, and you get stretched out in the air. But that's a beautiful shot. I think lob is the best. I mean, now I'm talking like I'm an expert in paddle, but and I'm an amateur player, but lob is the best shot. Bella told me once, which I think was really good, that he said, the smashers get the girls, but the lobbers win the match. And there's some truth to that. There's some truth to that. So it's and Paquito he told me when we played outdoors, and I like to lob 20-30 meters, and he said, there's no one in the world that doesn't have a problem with those lobs. If you lob that high, the ball is coming down so fast, so timing is impossible to get exactly right. So all these smashers that dominate when you're indoors, they have a real struggle playing outside, and it's not because the ball is coming down fast, but also everything is moving. Not only wind and sun, but trees, clouds, everything you use for perfect timing is out of place. So in that moment, he said, I always just put the ball in until I get the right moment to do a smash, because in the other instance I can miss, and remember, it's a game of not missing. So I think that's probably the key thing you see for new players. They always want to end the ball early.
Yeah,
and
they
go
always
for the
think
hard
they
shots.
think
Go
they're
for the
like
hard shots.
Tapia or
Yeah, yeah,
Coelho.
yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
you
He's
can see
amazing. Yeah.
Paquito. He when those big those pinchado lobs, you can just see just pushing the back and no biggie. But anyway, let's continue on because I wanted to talk to you about the LTA agreement. So you signed a 3-year agreement, as I understand it, with the LTA
Yes.
to broadcast their stuff. What made the UK market appealing for you? Why did you choose the UK? Because you've done Denmark, you've done Sweden. Give us an insight as to why you chose the UK.
Yeah. Well, it is quite interesting just to say that, you know, paddle is very, yeah, it's growing very fast on a global scale. So it's very interesting to see where you would go next. And normally we're looking, of course, to see where is paddle growing that much. Of course, we need to have an established tour. Otherwise, we have nothing to film, because the tour is what we build everything around. And then, of course, the national championships are even more interesting, but they're once a year. So we need a good paddle tour for that country. And the LTA British Paddle Tour is ongoing, but this year we will elevate it and promote it much better and in a very good way, you know, professionalizing the sport. So, of course, it comes down to collaboration with the federation. I always want to grow the sport together with the federation because they are the sport, which many people don't really understand. That, you know, you can do invitationals, you can do celebrity events, pro-ams, whatever. And those are really important. We need those, showcasing paddle to new verticals. You know, most people still think the paddle revolves around making a canoe go forward, you know. So we're in the teaching business. We have to teach people what paddle is. And those events are showcasing our sport in a good way. So that's perfect. But the sport will always grow through ranked sanctioned tournaments with points. The real sport will always be through an international federation or a national federation. So that's where we're coming from. And yeah, why the LTA? Why England? Of course, everyone in the paddle world is talking about the UK. That's you know, I was in the World Padel Summit, which I'm, you know, speaking at for the next event this year as well, and it's everyone is, you know, UK. Everyone is talking about. Everyone is, you know, hoping to talk about the US as well, of course, from a commercial standpoint. But I think when I started talking to Tom Murray from the LTA, who's head of paddle there. Britain had 200 courts 8 or 9 months ago, and when we finalized the deal now, Britain has 700 courts. So the growth is exponential, and it's fantastic to be a part of. And it will, of course, continue to grow. And of course, it's also very well. It's very comforting, or what would you say? It's yeah, it's positive that the LTA, of course, is a multi-million-dollar company that you know runs the Wimbledon and has a very big organization. We are used to dealing with newly started paddle federations, which in their own right are doing a very good job. But here you have a lot of more muscles that can help grow the paddle. Yes.
Right, because if you look at somewhere like Japan, where they have a separate, independent, tiny, it's harder. But the good news is when you get in at the beginning, I suppose, you can provide counsel, advice, consulting, if you will, and you're not having to fight with all, you know, ABC or whomever else, ESPN, because
It's a
it's
blessing and
still
a curse, because it's you have to invent everything as you go, but you get to invent everything as you go, because there's a lot of important decisions to be made, and to be a part of that is, of course, a luxury. Yeah.
And so, as I understand, the business model is mostly based on streaming subscriptions.
Yes, we broadcast everything on our own platform, which is Padel TV, of course, and you can watch it in an app, which is the best way probably, but also web-based and Apple TV or what have you.
I'll put all
But
those in the show notes.
yeah, okay, great. But we'll have so we do stream the paddle ourselves, and it's a subscription-based platform. So our subscribers get to watch all paddle we broadcast from all over the world, no matter the tournament, no matter the country. One subscription provides all. So, of course, the British viewers are not very interested in the Danish paddle tour, probably, but they can watch it if they like, and vice versa. But everyone will probably be interested in the European Cup, the Hexagon, the World Paddle Tour, America versus Europe, and what have you. So we try to put as much paddle as possible on our platform. And yes, the business model is a subscription one. It's, you know, it's a way, of course, for us to finance the high quality production. And people playing paddle is quite an expensive sport, racket wise. Just renting a court for 1 hour is pretty expensive. So
Depends on where.
yeah, it depends on where, but still, there's nowhere an hour on court is less than a month in Padel TV, and I'm proud to say that, at least. So, and of course, our other source of revenue is partnerships and sponsorships, because the interesting thing now, we're in the beginning of the paddle explosion in the world, is that all people watching paddle are playing paddle. So of course, naturally, the paddle companies, being racket brands, drinks, clothing, what have you, they're of course getting their target group, because everyone in our viewership are also playing paddle. So, and that's the beginning of it. Of course, in the long term, I'm interested in getting a 1 or 2% of the people that loves to watch tennis or football or rugby or whatever, but they never play it themselves.
Well, I mean, the
yeah.
the issue at some level for you in your business is that all people who watch play, but not all people who play watch.
Definitely not. And that's, of course, that's a growth process. And I mean, the main thing for us being in business is, of course, that I think paddle is a fantastic TV sport. It's a fantastic sport to watch. There's a lot of action happening in a sport space. So, for instance, we're always being compared to tennis, so why not? But it's a much bigger court. It's much less social. It's it's showcasing the sport, the paddle, where you get out of court play. You can let the ball bounce through the walls, and it makes for a really interesting and exciting broadcast. So we do get a lot of viral shots that go around the paddle community for ages and years, just because we produce it in a good way, and of course the main action the paddle players provide. But yeah, paddle will continue to grow, and it's an amazing TV sport. We've seen other sports come, like, I don't know, floor hockey or whatever, that grows very fast, but then they're not very suitable for broadcasting, and that's the key issue, of course, for us. That's in the business of broadcasting paddle.
In tennis, there's a long debate around the color of the ball to be able to watch it more, easier viewing when it was a colored ball versus a white ball. I don't recall the exact details, but in paddle, what makes it, in your mind, such a good television sport?
Of course, the action. There's a lot of action happening in a small area. So you're confined with 4 players on this,
10 by 10, 20 by 10.
Yeah, 10 by 20, right? But yeah, 10 by 10 on each side. Yeah, you're right. I shouldn't argue with you. You've played paddle longer than me. Okay. But yeah. So and also, of course, it's it's easy enough to play. A good a good description I think I got from my tennis friend Magnus Norman of Sweden, and he said like, you know, everyone can play paddle the first time. You can just get the ball in running, but in tennis you don't need to take a shower for the first 5 years playing tennis, because it's such a technically advanced and difficult sport. Whereas paddle is much easier to learn, but you know, as the saying goes, easy to learn and a minute to learn and a lifetime to master, right? So it's, you know, to play on the level where you watch the world tour players, yeah, that's a different thing, and that's basically what we're showcasing in our sport. And we need to build a star system. We need people to have idols in the sport, and yeah, that's where Tapia, Paquito, Coelho, Salazar, and Paula Jose Maria, and what have you come in, of course. So
well, hopefully we can also get some non-Argentinian, non-Spanish stars. I mean, we have Sofia Arujo, we have Ksenia Sarifova, we have our Italian lady. The name just skipped my head. Perdón. But anyway, let's go to the last question for you.
I think if you're speaking Italian, I think that Carolina Orsi is the most ranked one.
Exacto. Yeah. Thank you. So last question. So you've gotten this business now running in the UK. Based on what you see, what is the next UK in terms of maybe for your business, but also just which markets do you think are going to be interesting for you?
We obviously we're talking to a lot of federations, because what we're doing is exactly what you mentioned there. I think you put your finger on exactly what the problem is. That, and I think that FIP and Premier Padel have not really got that yet, is that we need to globalize this sport. We're making everyone speak English. In Hexagon, there were 50 people in the press room. We were the only ones forcing the players to do interviews in English. Because this is basically an Hispanic sport, and it shouldn't be, because in a global level you need to speak English. I mean, all the players in France, Italy, Sweden, Portugal, whatever, you know, they're getting all the player information is in Spanish, and it's like discriminatory against the world players. So it's making a threshold that it's harder to get in if you're not Spanish talking. But I think that will all change. I'm a very big advocate in bringing in global players. We should have Vindal in the Hexagon, or why not Adam Axelson or Simon Vasquez? We should have a British player like Christian Medina or Amy Gibson, who's doing very well right now. Because that will multiply the viewership. Because what I know that the Premier doesn't seem to know is that people want to watch their national heroes firsthand. They do like watching the World Tour, but they're quite fed up with only watching Spanish and Argentinian players week after week after week. Yes, they are still the best, but there's also thresholds being put up where the players coming are having a hard time getting into the main draw. So, and that's not only because they're worse players, because that's tightening. That gap is tightening, and other sports are coming. I mean, other countries are coming, and so I'm pretty sure we will see. I mean, of course, Danny Vindal was the first Northern European win in the top 50s, but I'm pretty sure we will see someone in the top 20s very soon. And hopefully a Swedish player, if I'm biased, but I would be equally happy if they were Danish or English. And just to answer your question, yes, we are looking at two countries very, very, very closely right now, and that's the USA, of course. From a commercial standpoint, it's unparalleled with any other country. The paddle is growing very fast, but of course it's not taking off as it could. But timing is everything, and if we don't get in there, someone else might do what we're doing. And as of now, no one is. On a world stage, we don't really have any competition because Premier Padel and FIP are thinking that this sport should grow, and this is their words. This sport will grow through the World Tour. And yes, it will. But if you don't include all the national federations, which is what we do, we prioritize the national tours. And I promise you, that's the way to do it, because we get a lot of viewers that are not interested in watching the World Tour, but they do want to see their own national heroes performing, preferably with and against the world players, but that will come. So, hopefully already for Hexagon next year, I'm hoping, and I think we will see a lot more countries represented in the teams.
Well, what you can see is Hexagon is bringing internationalization. We have the Mexican team, the USA, or Eva Longoria. We have and the Brits and all that. So that hopefully will.
And apart from the States, I would say United Arab Emirates is also very interesting. It's already the biggest sport in Dubai. It's outgrown football. It's growing very rapidly, and of course, there's also a lot of money, which of course, when you start a business, is also very important. So
it is
yeah.
So Johannes, I really appreciate you being on. Thank you so much for coming. Looking forward to getting on a court with you, whether it's in your archipelago or somewhere in London. we make that happen. How can people track you down, or specifically get a subscription on the Padel TV?
Well, they just go into padeltv.uk, Padel Padel TV as it's spelled, but I don't know what you call that in English, actually.
With a
Padel
dash.
and a dash.
Padel-TV.uk
or .co.uk works as well. But and then you just sign up. And normally we have there's no commitment or anything. If you want out, you just sign off, and you're no longer a subscriber. But
well,
yeah,
I'm sure the quality of things in the games will help. I will be pushing it best I can, Johannes. Thank you so much. Vamos, Padel!
Thank you so much. And sorry for talking that much.
It's all good.